All right, it's 12:30. Just had my lunch and a little afternoon espresso, and now it's time to talk about what makes this company great. And the company today is Pepsi. So the first thing is Pepsi owns 23 major brands, and it's available in greater than 200 countries. These brands are much more diverse than the case of, let's say, Coke, which we looked at last week. A very different business, though they have a competing product. Let's look at the market share of Coke and Pepsi in the United States. 44% market share of Coca-Cola, 24% of Pepsi. So Coke is dominant. What about global revenue? Well, Coca-Cola as a business makes a revenue of 43 billion, and Pepsi as a business under PepsiCo makes about 86 billion dollars. So thanks to the fact that Pepsi has two different product lines, it's able to make almost double the revenue as Coke. But is that a good thing? Well, we'll look in just a bit. So if we look at food and snack, it accounts for about 60% of the revenue of the company, and beverage is only 40%. And when you go to buy the snack products, sometimes you feel like, hey, I'm just buying air here. They sell a lot of air at a high price. So what's the most valuable beverage brands? Well, for Pepsi, their number one brand is Pepsi, and the second one is Mountain Dew. I grew up drinking Mountain Dew when I was young. And the most valuable food brands that they have within their portfolio is Lay's and Doritos. So Pepsi has been innovating, right? They're the first to offer the 2-liter bottle. After 30 years, they redesigned for the consumer, easier to pour, less plastic. And if we look at sports, well, they've been sponsoring the NBA, NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, and UEFA Champions League. Now, here's something I saw in the news. It came about a year ago, but Pepsi announced after 10 years of Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show performance, we've decided it's time to pass the mic. And so they're no longer paying up for that show in the middle of the Super Bowl, which is a hugely costly expenditure, maybe for not that much benefit. Now, they've sponsored a halftime for 10 years, but due to a slight decrease in broadcast viewers, Apple Music has replaced Pepsi as a halftime show sponsor. Now, the origins of Pepsi go back to North Carolina in 1893, and the man's name is Caleb Bradham, who was a pharmacist who came up with the idea of Pepsi. And it was soon after when Coke came out. So let's look at PepsiCo, the parent company, and it's in the consumer staples sector. PepsiCo's got 400,000 employees, massive, $86 billion in revenue. And of course, it's Pepsi, Frito-Lay, and then they also own the Quaker Foods brand. And the competitive advantage is through a wide product portfolio of popular beverage, snack, and food brands. And how did it achieve it? Well, through strong brand recognition, diverse product offerings, and effective marketing strategies. Also, I would highlight my personal experience with Pepsi. I took my first job out of university with Pepsi, and Pepsi also paid for my MBA. And I moved to Thailand in 1992. I'd already been working at Pepsi for 3 years. And eventually Pepsi did offer me some opportunities in Thailand. But by that time, I was already an analyst, and I was like, nah, it's time to get on with my job as an analyst. So I have to thank Pepsi for what they've done for me in the beginning of my career. Also, if it wasn't for Pepsi, I wouldn't have met Dr. Deming, which was a great turning point in my life. So let's continue on to understand more and ask the question, is the company financially world-class? So here's how I measure competitive advantage as an investor and a business owner. I use the world-class benchmarking scorecard I developed about 10 years ago. And this is how we created that scorecard for any company. We gather the yearly and quarterly financial data of 26,000 companies worldwide. We then calculate each company's profitable growth score, which is our composite of both profitability and growth. After that, we rank that subject company, in this case Pepsi, relative to sector peers of a similar size. And we use a decile ranking. 1 is best and 10 is worse. I consider a score of 1 or 2 as financially world-class. And I then assess the company's performance over the prior 4 months and the past 4 years and the past 12 months. So let's just recap by going and looking at Coca-Cola. We looked at Coca-Cola compared to 560 large consumer staples companies. And I said that because Coca-Cola had been maintaining roughly a 2 ranking, that it was financially world-class. It did have a rough time in 2020, but I would say Coca-Cola is financially world-class. So what about Pepsi? We can see right here that Coca-Cola has massive margins between 25, 22%. These are about 5 or 6 times the global average of about 6%. Well, what about Pepsi? Here we can see that Pepsi actually was not financially world-class in 2019, 2020, and 2021. But in 2022 and the past 12 months, their ranking has come back up to a 2, which puts them in world-class territory. Of course, in order to be truly financially world-class, you need to maintain that position for a long time. So, and if we look at the net profit margin of Pepsi, we can see that the net margin is only 10%. It's still much better than the average across the world of 6%, but I would say that Coca-Cola is much more profitable than Pepsi. Would you like to see your company and see how it measures up? If you own or lead a company with 15 million in revenue or more, just comment or DM me below. In addition, if you've got any comments or questions about Pepsi, or you'd like to see me measure another company's financial performance, just put a note in the comments and a message in the comments. Have a great Monday and a wonderful week ahead.